This is a current trends case brief of the Federal Court of Appeal case, Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness versus Huang. This case was presented to the Federal Court of Appeal and concerned Mr. Robert Huang. The discrepancy occurred when money was seized by an airport officer under the assumption it was a breach of the Act on Travelers. On the 5th of January 2011, the respondent, Mr. Robert Bo Da Huang, was approached by a CBSA, a Canadian Border Services Agency officer, at the Vancouver International Airport just as he was about to make a departure. The CBSA officer began to inform Mr. Huang of the currency reporting requirements that are imposed by the Act on Travelers carrying over $10,000. To this information, Mr. Huang responded, "Yeah, I know, I have $15,000, sorry." After which the customs officer verified that the actual amount the respondent was carrying was $15,760. The customs officer then thought the currency to be proceeds of a crime and seized the total amount under the Proceeds of Crime Act. Mr. Huang requested a ministerial review of the decision made by the officer, and it was denied despite the fact that $6,700 of the funds had been legally obtained. There were three main issues that arose during this case. A. What is the standard of review to be applied to the decision of the federal court and to the minister's interpretation of the Act? B. Does Section 29 of the Act allow the minister to grant relief from forfeiture in respect to a portion of the seized currency? C. Was the judge bound to accept the minister's interpretation on the basis of judicial comity or courtesy? In law, comity is a legal principle that one jurisdiction will extend certain courtesies to another jurisdiction, particularly by recognizing the validity and the effect of their executive, legislative, and judicial acts. In this case, the respondent did not appear or argue their side. For issue A, the appellant argues that a close analysis of the judge's reasons revealed that she actually applied the correctness standard of review in this situation. The lower-level judge concluded that the minister's decision was unreasonable, which is consistent with the application of reasonableness as a standard of review. B. The appellant argued that Parliament, when writing the Act, intentionally chose not to let the return of a portion of currency based on the principle of statutory interpretation. C. The judge improperly applied the doctrine of judicial comity that requires she follow the reasonings of similar cases. For clarification, statutory interpretation is the process by which courts interpret and apply legislation. Some amount of interpretation is often necessary when a case involves statute. In this case, how the Act was read and acted upon affected the outcome for Mr. Huang. Decision. The appeal was dismissed, and so Robert Huang received the legally obtained portion of his money back. The judge concluded that the applicable principle of statutory interpretation led to one reasonable interpretation of the minister's discretion. In this case, the minister had authority to grant relief from forfeiture in respect of the seized currency under Section 29 of the Act, but the minister's understanding of his authority was the opposite, and therefore his decision was unreasonable. Mr. Huang received the legal portion of his money back. Due to the Court of Appeal, the judge said the minister's interpretation of the Act was incorrect. The prior jurisprudence of the federal court was incorrectly decided, and so the lower-level judge was not required to respect the principle of comity. I think this is a very interesting case because not only did it deal with how the interpretation of an act can affect the outcome of a case as such, but it also was reflective upon the idea of judicial comity and how the hierarchy of judicial figures can affect the outcome of a case. Do you think it is important for judges to consider and respect judicial comity when making decisions?